American Literature 2, welcome to the class. I am Professor Coomer. Many of you guys have already had me for American Literature 1. If you have not had me for American Literature 1, welcome. I am not actually out in the mountains. This is all just fake. It's Hollywood screens and movie magic that puts me here. So the reason why I have this up is because, well, I actually share my office with my dog who is back there. You might hear him now and then. It's not really me whimpering and scratching my nose or whatever. But anyway, this is where I'm working because my office actually is under construction in the Humanities Building. So we are going 100% virtual, not only because of the COVID pandemic, but also because the Humanities Building is completely shut down right now. So this semester, you're going to have kind of a little bit different of an experience than the average American Lit 2 student might have. Sadly, we won't be able to have a lot of discussions because I tried that last semester and it's awkward. It's not as easy to have discussions about literature and things like that via Zoom, I think. And so, hey, I totally understand that. So we're going to do the best we can. But I do ask that this semester, you do your best to read the material and really try to digest it. To be honest, American Lit 2 is, in my opinion, way more fun. The readings, and hey, everybody's got their different things they like and don't like, but I think American Lit 2, we read some of the stuff that is the most fun when it comes to American literature. American Lit 1 is great and all, but in American Literature 2, we really get into some pretty interesting concepts and ideas, and it's really my favorite class to teach. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed teaching it. Sadly enough, I can't cover all of the literature that I'd like to cover in American Lit 2. There's just so much. And this is, of course, due to the proliferation of writers in America as time progresses and as we have more and more of these great literary authors. We have more to choose from. And so sadly enough, I do have to choose, and I do have to also make sure that I'm covering the state requirements so that you can transfer this credit. And so that requires me to cover certain authors. And you know, for better or for worse. Now, these authors, of course, are just fantastic as well. But for better or for worse, I can't always nerd out and say, oh, what about this one author? You actually have a fantastic textbook. I really am impressed with the Norton Anthology textbook. So we're going to take a look at that. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you, and we will get to it. So I'm on Blackboard here. So we're going to go into the American Literature 2 Blackboard site, and we're going to take a look. First of all, just so you know, we have, let's see here. I am in the right one, right? Okay, great. Let's take a look at the syllabus first. And if you take a look, there's two options here. Really, the simple syllabus is the one. I may just go ahead and delete this. You know, I'll at least I won't mess with it right now. But anyway, we'll take a look at the simple syllabus link, and it gives you all the course information that you need. This is the textbook that we're using, the Norton Anthology of American Literature, 1865 to the present. So you're going to notice, I think the cover looks a little different on my particular book. But there's 3 books. So there's actually 3 books in the series. And this is the 9th edition. So just make sure you have the 9th edition so that we're all on the same page, pun intended. So that is the textbook, and here is my contact information. The phone number is useless. The office location is useless because, again, I will be working from my home. So the best way to get a hold of me is through my email. My office hours, so I will have an office hour every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., and then every Tuesday and Thursday from 2 to 3 p.m. This may change, and if it does, just always refer back to the syllabus, or I will make some kind of an announcement so that you're aware of that change. But for right now, those are the times. Now, if you need to talk to me, I do have a lot of students. And so one of the things that I would recommend is if you know for a fact, hey, man, I really need to talk to Professor Coomer about this, don't wait, okay? It's always better to ask me a question, even if you know, obviously I want you to try to figure out the answer for yourself. But if you have a question, it's likely that, hey, that's an important thing to talk to me about. Let's see if I'm going to turn on the lights a little bit. Oh my goodness. That's studio magic. Okay. So, but basically, if you have a question, feel free to email me about it. A lot of times we can solve it via a simple email, but if you want to talk to me, definitely talk to me and we'll figure it out. American literature, of course, there is a course designation, the description, and some of the things that we're going to be doing. So take a quick look. I do like this. I like the fact that we do tell you that you're going to engage in an articulate expression through critical reading and effective written, oral, and digital communication. So we're really trying to engage with this literature and really try to feel it out. We're going to evaluate ethical behavior as an individual, as a member of a local and global community. We're going to apply critical and creative thinking skills, and we're going to integrate knowledge and perspectives of different disciplines to answer complex questions. Because at the end of the day, literature is about the most complex questions that there is. Philosophy, emotions, the human condition itself. What is it to be a human? How is it that we have all these emotions, experiences, all these things that we share, and we share it with billions of other people, and we're all experiencing these same things, yet we feel so disconnected from other people oftentimes. But through literature, through the arts, we can say, hey, you know that thing about life? Yeah, I feel that too. You know that one thing. And so what we're going to be doing all of this semester is learning and basically reading how other authors have expressed that one thing about life. Have you ever noticed that thing? That is what we're really searching for. And so we're going to integrate all of our knowledge, and we're going to be able to critically think, which is so rare in in the year 2021. Critical thinking, I would say, is something that it's hard to find. It's very, very hard to find someone who's actually willing to critically think. There's a quote by Carl Jung who says that we generally don't like to think, so we simply judge. We just make a snap decision and judge. With this class, before we even get started, I want to invite you to engage in what we call liberal thinking. And I know that word because we're in a culture that doesn't like to think at all. That word itself has so many meanings that it's like, that means you're Democrat or whatever, right? It's not a political thing. Liberal thinking is free thinking. Just think about the word liberation. We're liberating our mind to think critically. So I want to implore you to think without the confines of our society. Think without worrying, is this a good thought or a bad thought? Give yourself the freedom to at least contemplate and at least think. And don't feel like, well, I need to figure out how I'm going to use this to prove my own beliefs or dogmas that I already possess. You don't ever have to change your mind. And that's something where I think a lot of people are, I don't want to change who I am. No one's asking you to do that. All I ask you to do is to be open and to really exercise a part of yourself that you're not going to see if you look at the news or if you look at most people's conversations on, or I would say 99.99% of all social media. This is just critical thinking, liberal thinking. Can I hold an idea in my mind without it affecting me? Can I just at least ponder it? Can I try to put myself in another person's shoes, from another position in life, from another time, from another experience, and at least for a moment experience what it is to be someone else? And in doing so, realizing we all share the same human condition. So this is what I want you to really try to focus on. This is the goal of literature and the arts itself. So get into this. This is exciting. This is something that, especially with American Lit 2, we don't have a lot of the problems that we experience in American Lit 1, where after 1865, American or just English itself, written language, has become more similar to what we're used to now. It's no longer using King James English or translations that are sometimes archaic and hard to decipher. There's a lot of, basically, if you were transported back into the year 1865 and you bumped into somebody, you would be able to speak to that person really easily. It wouldn't be, yeah, there might be some words that we use differently, and there might be a few things, but really our language has not changed so dramatically at this point. For the rest of this semester, all throughout this semester, you're really going to be able to say, okay, I'm pretty sure I know what this person is trying to get at. And if not, it's on you for not thinking critically. You got to dig deep. Okay. So again, really think about that as we go forward with this class. Now we're going to have to cover, again, there are certain things when it says course content, we have to cover these things. This is part of just making sure that this class will transfer to any other university. And for those of you who took me in American Lit 1, yes, we're starting with Emily Dickinson. And if you didn't take American Lit 1, you're wondering why that's a deal at all. Well, in American Lit 1, we cover Emily Dickinson at the end. In American Lit 2, we cover Emily Dickinson at the beginning. It's set in stone. It's something we always have to do. And so welcome back for those of you who took American Lit 1. We're going to be covering Emily Dickinson this week. It's a short week, so we're not going to have to do a super deep dive again. If you've not read any Emily Dickinson, I highly recommend digging deep into Emily Dickinson. You can always refer back to all of her poetry that's in the book. It's really a treasure of poetry. We're going to cover Twain, James. We're going to cover different schools of thought. In American Literature 1, we covered Enlightenment thinking, we covered Romanticism and Transcendentalism. Now we're going to start covering. We're going to start with the Transcendentalists, right? And then we're instantly going to be moving into the Realists. So realists, regionalists, naturalism is a whole philosophy that is affecting us to this very day. You may not even be aware of a lot of opinions you have about the way the world works that are absolutely influenced by the school of naturalism. So what is naturalism? We're going to talk about that. And how does it affect literature? We're going to talk about early 20th century poetry, so the 1900s, the mid-century fiction. We're going to talk about modern poetry and modern fiction. We're even going to be covering a play. So we're going to be covering A Streetcar Named Desire, Tennessee Williams. So that's going to be a lot of fun as well. And yes, I will recommend a version for you guys to watch if you want to watch a screenplay. I'm always going to recommend, if you're reading literature and it's meant to be seen and performed, you do need to see it and see it being performed. So everybody always loves that because they don't have to necessarily read the play. I still want you to read the play, but you can read it as you watch it as well. And sometimes that makes it more enjoyable. If you take a look at the grading scale, this semester, we don't have some of the things we had in American Lit 1, but we have basically everything's pretty heavy weighted. So you're going to have a documented literary essay. For those of you who took American Lit 1, we had one of those, and this is going to be just like that. It'll be at the end of the semester. So as you go through the semester, I want you to really think about how this literature is applicable to the modern day. And maybe there's something that you feel like is very applicable to the modern day, something that's discussed, something, a philosophy, something that we should be thinking about more in the modern day. Really think about that, because I'm eventually going to ask you to write a full-length and pretty deep essay about that. Look how your midterm and finals are weighted. Those are heavy tests. So just for 2 tests you're going to take, that's 40% of your grade. That will make you or break you. So I know a lot of times, even whenever we're in person, people feel like they can kind of glaze over the literature. They wait till the last minute. They don't really read it. I get it. I've taught this class so many times. I understand. And I took the class myself. All right. But you really do need to make a promise to yourself. This semester, I am going to spend time reading every day, just a little bit every day, because you're going to be tested very thoroughly in these midterms and finals. If I have to give you a grade that's worth 20% of your grade, I have to make sure that that is a really good test of your knowledge of the material. So don't skip over stuff. Really make sure you understand these things thoroughly. And if you need to Google, watch a video on YouTube that discusses it, make sure you understand it. Of course, we're going to try to do some discussions. I'm going to send you out a video each week and I'll cover some of these things, but I do expect you to do the work to try to figure out what are the meanings? What can I take from this reading? Participation in attendance is 20%, and in-class writing and short writing is 20%. Right there, that's 40% of your grade, and that's going to be determined. Let me just show you where that's going to be determined. One of the places you'll determine that is on the discussion boards. Every single week, I'll expect you to make a post discussing some aspect of the literature. Now, this can be what you think one of these readings means, but it can simply be what you liked about something that we read, or basically what I want you to try to do is make some kind of an impressive comment that shows, hey, I understand something, or ask a question to the class. And you're going to need to do this every single week. You go into, for instance, week 1 discussion, and you're going to create a thread, and you title it with your name, and you ask a question to the class. Maybe you ask a question and then you answer it with what you think the answer is. Well, someone else can make a comment on that. And what you'll need to do every week is you'll need to make at least one comment of your own. So pose a question, make a comment of your own, and you'll need to respond to at least one other person's comment. So every week that needs to get done. And so that means checking in, that means not waiting till the last minute, that means making sure that you're staying on this. Now, I know that what can happen is by Friday, maybe all anybody's done is just made their first comment. Well, you need to be able to say, okay, well, next week I'll have to go back and make a comment on discussion board number 1, and make sure that by the time we're done for instance, by the time we're at midterm, you've at least made one comment and one response to everything by that point. And I'll remind you about these things as we go. And of course, if you have any questions, you can talk to me there. The other thing is content. You go to course content. Every week, we're going to be doing an explication or some kind of a writing assignment with regards to what you're going to be reading. So for instance, your first one, and this is for this week, you're going to write a half a page overview of Emily Dickinson. Who is Emily Dickinson? Well, the good news is in your textbook, there is a overview telling you about her life. All you need to do is summarize, just put it in your own words, half a page, that's barely anything. And then you're going to respond to 2 of the 3 poems that you read. Now, what is a response? So all a response is you're going to give your opinion. You're going to tell me how the poem made you feel. You're going to tell me what you think the author was trying to say, any of those things. And you basically give me a paragraph. So in this case, you'll write 2 paragraphs. One of them will be on one of those poems and one will be about the other poem. So this is pretty much 1 page worth of work. And those 2 things, so your weekly writing and your weekly discussion boards, those 2 things will be worth 38 points when you combine them all together, 38 points. So you get about 38 points per week if you do your homework. That adds up pretty quickly, my friends, okay? Because this is a 1,000 point course. So over the course of the entire semester, if you're neglecting this, you're probably going to do very poorly in the class. So just keep up with your regular readings and with your regular every week writings, and you should be just fine. Let's go back to the syllabus. That is where we get the participation and attendance, in-class writing, and short writing. That's where we get that from. So there's not a lot of sources of points. You have your essay, your midterm and final, and then your weekly writings and discussion boards. Okay, so I want you to look at the course policies on your own, take a look at the technology things. Of course, we are in a virtual environment, so a lot of that does not apply. And then take a look, of course, at the disabilities and service policy. If any of that applies to you, please call the number or head over to the disabilities office and they can give you accommodations. Of course, with student behavior, here's something I want to talk about with student behavior. We want to be respectful of our fellow classmates. And this also means being respectful whenever a person might say something that you find to be insensitive, okay? Obviously, you don't want to be insensitive on purpose, but in order to think, you have to be able to take some risks. And sometimes, a person might say something, you're like, I don't really like what you had to say. Well, here's the thing. We have when it comes to liberal arts, we have to have a plurality of ideas. We have to be able to respect everyone's different opinions. So when it comes to these poems, when it comes to fiction, when it comes to works of like, for instance, the screenplay, well, maybe a person has an opinion that conflicts with your own personal opinion. Well, guess what? This is great. This is the practice that we have to get into when it comes to liberal arts. So if a person says something, you disagree with it, just respectfully tell them why you disagree or why you think that their position is maybe not as well thought out. And when someone does that to you, don't be all like, F you, all these things, which is what we do in, sadly enough, all of the rest of society these days. What you're going to do is you're going to apply your ability to engage in liberal thought, free thought, and you're going to be able to say, hey, you know what, that's a possibility. Maybe you have a point there. Here is why I said what I said. And this is what we call dialectic, okay? This is one of the most sacred traditions of the liberal arts. When it comes to dialectic and or discourse, we engage in this with respect, and we engage with this in an intellectual and very honest intellectual pursuits. We're not worried about, did you insult me or what's my reputation? We are simply trying to find truths, and this would be with maybe a lowercase truth, maybe not the ultimate truth, but what are these truths that we can come to through discourse? Because when we work together, when we apply our thinking together, that's whenever we find those truths that we can't always find by ourselves. So we're trusting in that process. So as we go through here, of course, you don't have to worry about a mask whenever you're in my class because it's all virtual. Here is our course calendar. Okay, so for your assignment this week, read any 3 poems of Emily Dickinson. So many of you guys took American Lit 1. You can go back to your favorite poems. And again, you're going to need to do your homework on those, on 2 out of those 3. If you haven't read Emily Dickinson, I would recommend reading more than 3 poems, just to kind of thumb through and see what her style is like. But take a look at those poems, and that is your homework. I want you to read about, basically, there's a bio on Emily Dickinson. Read her bio, and then read any 3 poems of your choice, and then do your homework. So your homework, again, like every week, you're going to do your writing assignment. So just do that, hand that in there, and then you're going to do your discussion board entry. And again, you're just going to go to week 1 discussion, create a thread, and then you make your comment over whatever poem. And you can copy and paste the poem if you would like. You can find these poems online. You can copy and paste these poems and really explicate. Say, this is why I think this is what the author was trying to say. And what aspect of the human condition is this author trying to write about? Really, I want to give you a lot of freedom. I just want you to use that freedom, okay? Use that freedom of thought. Really think about these things and try to challenge your classmates to think deeply about literature. And in doing so, we're thinking deeply about what it is to be a human being. Okay, having said that, that's really all I needed to cover with you guys today. You should know what your books look like. If you want to take a look at the rest of the reading list, you can do that. But now you know what's due. By Friday, you'll need to complete your readings and then take a look and complete your weekly writing. So writing assignment 1, hand it in there. And then you'll need to complete your discussion boards. And again, if for some reason you don't have an opportunity to respond to what someone else has to say this week, watch for it next week, because you do need to have 2 entries for every single one of these by midterm so that you can get your points. Okay, guys, so I want to thank you for being in the class. I'm really looking forward to this. Guys, if you have any questions, feel free to email me at jcoomer@venue.edu. Take a look at the faculty link. For some reason, my faculty information didn't work. It's not there at the moment while I'm making this video, but it will be there whenever you look at it, because I'm about to make the changes. So guys, thanks so much. I will look forward to seeing you guys and reading your thoughts.